2025 four-star edge CJ May is almost ready to make a decision. Can Syracuse win out?
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, I have brought on Locked On recruiting expert Brian Smith to talk all about Syracuse football recruiting. CJ May is nearing his decision. Jayden Mann is making his decision, and Winston Watkins released his top 16, and Syracuse made the cut for the five-star wide receiver. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sport stops sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Brian, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast today. Let's start off with CJ May, a player you're very familiar with. He is a four-star edge, 6'4", 220 pounds. He is from Highland Home, Alabama. CJ May released his top four. His top four includes Syracuse, as well as Auburn, Louisville, and Washington, and he is making his decision in just 2 days. He said July 13th. And so, Brian, I just want to come at you right away here. What are you hearing regarding his decision?
I think it'll be Louisville or Syracuse, personally. I know Auburn's not – something changed. I cover Auburn. They are not in play. That's just a hat on the table. Washington's kind of weird, but his recruitment's been weird. So committed to Notre Dame early. Kids from Alabama don't do that. Auburn and Alabama have been lukewarm on him on and off. Now it's schools from all over. But here's my advice. Anytime Louisville's involved with the recruitment, that's always iffy because they will drop a lot of NIL money, and I mean a lot. So if they really want him, that's going to be hard. I hate making predictions anytime Louisville is in the mix.
Got it. So you're saying it's probably between Syracuse and Louisville, and I'm seeing similar buzz out there as well. Regarding CJ May, what are some of his strengths and what are some things he can work on?
This is a kid that's got the natural length that you're looking for. He could move in space. He could probably play outside backer. But many, because it's such an important position, would like to see him play a pass rushing position. I don't know if he has the demeanor to be a true defensive lineman and have that mean streak in him. He's a pretty nice kid, but there are other guys too. Reggie White was nice, and he's in the Hall of Fame. So I'm just curious to see how his evolution goes because there's not one spot for him. He could be good in a 3-4 as an outside backer, or maybe he is a 4-3 end. But that's something I'm curious about. And then also he's a kid that just changed direction and all that. He could be a flex tight end. Like, he's a very good athlete. So no matter how you would take him, he'll find a spot. Just may not be the one you originally thought, no matter what school it is.
It's funny that you mentioned the niceness, because there are a lot of professional college athletes out there who are super nice guys, super nice ladies off the field, off whatever they are doing. But when they actually get in the arena,
exactly,
they're psychopaths. It's like their personality completely. Yeah. Like Ray Lewis, I'm sure he is like the nicest guy. I've never met him, but I'm sure he's like the nicest guy off the field. But on the field, I mean, you wouldn't want to go within 20 yards of him. So as long as they're mean on the field, play within the rules. You know, don't be like super dirty. Play within the rules. But you know, it's okay to be a little bit nice. You mentioned that CJ May's recruitment has been a little bit weird. Why has it been maybe more of an outlier compared to a lot of other recruits?
Again, like the state of Alabama, to me, historically, among the states that have a lot of kids, there are three that are just really hard to get players out of: Ohio, Alabama, and Louisiana. And I'm sure you have a pretty good idea on why that would be. But Bama didn't go after him hard. Auburn recruited him some, but Notre Dame went after him real hard and he committed early, too early. He wanted to take visits. They're like, no, and they cut bait with him. So Notre Dame is just kind of different with that. But Auburn's been lukewarm on and never like went all in. So neither of the in-state schools went after a kid that's an edge guy, which they're always coveted. So that's just bizarre, period. But then you look at his list: Syracuse for an Alabama kid, Washington. Like, it's just really random how it's been, because those kids, and I live in Alabama, they just don't go far from home. His list is polar opposite of the history of this state. I don't know him well enough to understand it, but good for him.
Yeah, he did say in an interview that it didn't really matter in terms of the travel because, well, first of all, if it did, Washington definitely would not be.
That's exactly right.
Like Syracuse is one thing. Like that's like a 3-hour flight maybe from Alabama, but Washington's.
That's as far away as he can go.
You can't go much farther. I mean, I guess Hawaii is that's about it. I don't hear many.
I don't count that as a school
Hawaii. But he said he has a tight relationship with his family in an interview, so it apparently doesn't matter too much to him. And hopefully Syracuse can win out for a guy like CJ May, a 4-star edge from Alabama. And I do find it interesting that Auburn, it seems like would be very, very, Auburn or Alabama 4-star edge from that state. Seems like it would be a 2-horse race, but apparently not. Apparently you're saying it's going to be probably Louisville or Syracuse.
Yeah.
So CJ, if you're listening, if you're watching, I already made the case yesterday for you to come here. The weather is not all that bad. I know there was a tornado warning the other day in Syracuse.
They're not worried about tornadoes down here. The word snow to them is a 4-letter word of a different kind. Okay, down here, it's just, so that's the problem.
Did you know that there was actually a tornado warning yesterday in Syracuse?
No.
There was a tornado in Syracuse.
That's not cool. Those things, I've seen what they can do firsthand. So yes.
Brian, I was making a recruiting pitch with another guest on the podcast yesterday, and I was talking about how, everyone, rags on Syracuse about the weather and the snow and everything like that. And I was like, hey, first of all, you're playing in a dome. And second of all, wherever you go in the country, there's always going to be the advantages and disadvantages. And I talked about how, you go to the Midwest, you got Tornado Alley right there. Apparently Syracuse is adding to its repertoire of bad weather. So now we got tornadoes involved here. But I think that covers it for CJ May. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the streaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Moving on to a 3-star offensive lineman. He's 6'4", 285 pounds. His name is Jayden Mann. He's from Bronx, New York. You mentioned how Alabama and Syracuse, kind of a weird match, but could happen with CJ May. Jayden Mann is from Bronx, New York. So this is someone who is more up our alley for Syracuse. He released his top 4. Syracuse is, of course, in it, along with Rutgers, Georgia Tech, and West Virginia seems to be the outlier here of the top 4. Similar thing with CJ May. What are you hearing regarding Jayden Mann's recruitment?
Well, for the life of me, I don't know why this hasn't happened earlier, but obviously Fran is a good recruiter. They've done a good job at that program. They've done a good job in that area, New Jersey, New York. If they don't win out in this kind of recruitment, they have no chance to turn the program around. Like you have to win New York, New Jersey if you're Syracuse. It's always been that way. I think they got a great shot here, and they've got more than one kid they're recruiting at that program. They got some dudes there. They got some good. I was watching some of their film, but his list is a little goofy. But I'll just say this: especially big guys, there aren't enough kids like him in the Northeast. And if there are, they usually go to about 3 or 4 schools that are one's independent and 3 are in the Big Ten. I'm sure you know which ones they are. If you can steal a kid, like I don't think Penn State or Notre Dame or any of them are after this kid.
No, his top 4 is
kid. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, and he can move. This kid can play early at Syracuse.
Really?
Oh yeah, I think he can play as a redshirt freshman. He needs a year of technique. Like his technique is iffy. I mean, that's what I got written down. But like on my notes, first thing I put, great frame. He looks like an SEC offensive lineman.
Got it.
I deal with those kids every day. That is the bottom line. If you don't have those kids, you're not moving up the ladder and competing with Florida State, Clemson, Miami. You're not. So this is a really important recruitment for Syracuse.
Got it. And it's funny you mentioned that he has great frame. Obviously, he can work on the technique. I mean, I'd rather you have, excellent frame. We can always teach the technique, but it's tough to teach size because
you can't.
You can't. You could do weight training, but I mean, he's 6
height
foot
and length,
4.
brother. That's what the NFL Combine is about. Height and length.
Yeah, 6'4". I mean, I can't teach that. I can't teach you to grow more. I can, you give proper weight training and everything. You can get the guy up to 300 pounds, which is probably what he's going to need to. And he's got another year of college. Is he more of a tackle or is he more of a guard?
Right tackle or guard. I don't think he can play left, but he's such a power kid, and he's got good enough feet to get the edge. When I say left tackle, like playing left tackle against Miami's edge rushers or NC State, one of these elite teams is different than some random school. There's about 3 or 4 teams you play every year that's got a guy that's different. Louisville's edge rushers, guys like that, that's different. I'd rather have him at guard or right tackle. But run blocking, we're good. His upper body strength is already good. He's tenacious. He finishes plays with a thud, and that's what you need if you're going to elevate your program.
Got it. And another thing you mentioned with the frame and his technique and everything like that, he's from New York, and I've heard you mention this on the Locked On Auburn podcast about how certain areas are more stouted than others. Is that part of the reason why he's maybe a 3-star recruit other than like a 4 or not even a 5, but a 4-star recruit?
There's nobody scouting New York kids. I've never heard one of my buddies going into New York to scout a kid, ever. It's a basketball city.
Right.
All of us pretty much that scout, minus a few guys that are literally living where they do just to cover that geographic area, all live down south because the proximity to Prosper. I live in Alabama. I'm in a 7-hour radius of pretty much everything I need outside of Miami. It's a little further to Miami. That's it. It's all proximity. And the number of kids I can throw a rock and hit that can play Division I football is a lot. It's just not the same in New York. So people don't go there. Those kids get undervalued sometimes. It's just part of the game. It's just the opposite in basketball. Like New York City in basketballs.
Yeah.
It's insane, but it's a different sport. So I think this kid, if he lived where I do, or if he lived in suburban Atlanta, if he lived in Charlotte, he would get much more attention. That's my opinion.
Fair enough. So maybe he would be a higher ranked recruit. And that's
probably
because I'm going to get it to later on in the show about how Syracuse has a bunch of 3-star recruits in its recruitment class, but no 4 or 5 stars. But part of it might be because simply the region they're recruiting from, because
100%.
They're not getting a lot of eyeballs on there. Let's move on to a pair of quarterback recruits in the class of 2025. We got Rich Belin and Luke Carney so far. Those are the 2 that Syracuse had. They did miss out on the 4-star quarterback who committed to Maryland. It was Malik Washington. So sticking with Belin and Carney, what are the similarities and what are the differences between the 2?
Belin is a kid that has a lot of upside. He's another Cardinal Hayes kid. I just really like his frame because he's a bigger body kid. It's already over 200 pounds. He looks like a college football player. Now he can throw it deep. That was obvious. Their game plan is to chuck it. They made no bones about it. They like to throw deep. I have no idea what he can do with underneath stuff based on his film. They don't run a lot of those routes. They're play action, go deep. Let's take the top off, kind of like Oakland Raiders 1975. But that really was what I saw. But he's also pretty nimble for a bigger guy. He's listed at 215. He'll sidestep in the pocket and either make a throw, or if you lose contain, he can score. He's not the most aesthetically pleasing runner until he gets in his open gate, but he can pick him up and put him down. So I'm curious to see how much he would be able to do read option and RPO in a more structured scheme at the college level. But his upside is really good. It's a natural passing motion too. He just needs refinement on how to read defenses and all the stuff that is really critical that we won't know till he gets to college. Frame and all that there are there.
And what about Luke Carney?
That's a kid that I was very surprised until I realized, this is a Dallas kid. Dallas and LA, in my life of following football and quarterbacks, are the 2 best cities for quarterbacks. There's so many quarterback trainers, etc. You can tell this kid has been throwing a football since he's 3. Very accurate. Syracuse is going to have a hard time keeping this kid. You know what I mean? Like that kid's a dude.
So you're saying he might be a better thrower than I am?
I'm not going to comment on that. He's an elite thrower for his age. They won state in the private division in Texas, which is not very good, but like the way he throws, throwing off his back foot, if he's stepping into it, if it's off play, it doesn't matter. His throwing motion ends up being the same, no matter what's going on around him. That is really rare for a young kid. And he's just accurate as all get out. He's got a pretty good arm for his age. And he's also not afraid to like hit back shoulder throws and out routes and put zip on. A lot of guys with those short, don't time it well. He's very advanced. Like this is a kid eventually Oklahoma, Texas, LSU are going to contact if they haven't already.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So it just depends on how big he gets. Sometimes kids this age don't get any bigger. And then they tater off in recruiting. Again, dimensions for those schools, very important. So, but right now, like his projection is very high. This is a top 100 recruit, in my opinion.
Really?
Oh, 100%.
Top 100 in the country overall?
Oh, absolutely. Because he's such a natural passer. And you can tell he's been coached. Like he's got a long way to go. He's a young kid, but like there's no way that you can't say he's not a guy that can get the ball wherever he needs. Like the film doesn't lie. You can say whatever you want, but you put on the film and that's the truth. He's throwing and making really accurate throws to the edges of the field, not the middle, not check downs, not just bombs down the middle, the outs, the fades, things that are hard for college and pro guys. He's doing as a freshman in high school. That's impressive.
So, Brian, the only reason why I'm like kind of surprised you said that he's top 100 overall, in your opinion, is because I check all these recruiting services with all these players. And a lot of times, there's maybe a little bit of discrepancy here or there, but for the most part, they're kind of accurate between like plus or minus, 30 spots in a ranking every once in a while. With Luke Carney, it's all over the place. I mean, some services have him as a 3-star. Some services have him as a 4-star. You have him as top 100 overall. It seems like this is someone who might be is it fair to call him a boomer bust type of prospect here?
Well, here's the problem for him. And I'm not picking on him. He plays it at a private school. And unless you know the kind of player he is, like even as a freshman, he was making those kind of plays and he got bigger and all that. And I stopped watching his film. I've given up on all the stuff with the rankings and stuff like that. He's a top 100 kid if he keeps getting bigger and stronger. But if he doesn't add more weight, like can he take the beat? That's one of the things I talk to coaches about off the record, obviously. But can he take the pounding? There's a couple of kids that are ranked higher than him. They're actually smaller. That kids that I know, Juju Lewis, etc. Like this kid's a top 100 kid in the way he throws the ball. But he's playing at a private school in Dallas against very mediocre competition. That leaves a lot of people to be like, I don't know. I had never watched his film until today. Like this is an elite prospect, the way he throws the ball. But is he going to get bigger? And quarterback is about post-snap reads, man. That's not something you can evaluate at the high school level. If he fills out his frame,
evaluating that even for the college to pro level.
That's what I mean. Like, because every system is different. There's no way to do it. Literally, there's no way to do it. It is 100% a guess. And it drives NFL GMs crazy because they get fired for it, but there's no way to do it. Like they didn't know Troy Aikman.
As a New York Jets fan, I'm well aware of the amount of quarterbacks that have
not
ended up very good.
Okay, that's your mistake right there, not mine. But
I didn't make the mistake. I'm a Jets fan. I don't make
that's the mistake right there. But that's another story.
It's my dad's fault. He passed it down to me. Guess what? My kid is also going to be a Jets fan. I feel sorry for he or her. It's going to be a problem.
Okay, well, that's everybody's got issues in life. This kid's a top 100 talent based on weight. Like, if they get him and he is able to handle the pound, I'm telling you, he's accurate enough. And they got to suit his talents. He's not going to run around like crazy. He's mobile enough, but he's a top 100 talent. He wasn't even like in any of the Elite 11 stuff, and I follow that closely. But again, he played at a private school in Dallas. If he played at Plano East, if he played at Duncanville, the kid that won it's from Duncanville. So in playing with the elite players, he'd be ranked way higher. That's part of it. And again, he's from Dallas.
Yeah, I was also going to say that to you. Like, I feel like Dallas is one of those regions where they would get a lot of eyeballs.
Texas is a public school state for football. They hate the private schools because they know those schools cheat to get kids to go there. like crazy. And so they basically cut him off for the most part. The transfer rules in Texas are insane, and they don't get much attention. He's playing against a bunch of mediocre competition. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm saying he's a top 100 talent. I have no doubt about that. But he's got to add weight, and we don't know about the post-snap read stuff. And he is different. I mean, the kid, I like Belin. He's not near as polished. Not near as polished, but like the frame, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what it's supposed to look like. This kid just needs to add weight. So if he does, man, this could be a 2-3 year starter.
Do you think either one of them might be ready to play day one in 2025?
Oh,
because
hell no.
okay,
Hell no. Never say that about a quarterback.
All right.
No.
I had to ask. I had to ask.
Yeah. Like, do you guys have a definitive plan beyond this season? Do you think there's a guy
that's why I asked, because Kyle McCord's in the last year of his eligibility. So I was kind of thinking along the lines they probably go in the transfer portal again to get a quarterback. But if the quarterback that they're recruiting, is it possible that he could play D1 right away? That's tough, because even in my lifetime, when I think about it,
5 kids in high school can do that.
I know. I had to ask, but I mean, it's like Trevor Lawrence and like Caleb Williams, and like that's it. Those are like the best of the best in the country when they did it.
Well, look at it this way: even Drake May redshirted.
Yeah.
Drake freaking May. Okay. Physically,
they had Sam Howell there.
Yeah, no, it's like it's really hard. Just the attrition on your body, the difference is way different. This kid's not getting touched in that private league, and that's the other thing. Like, a lot of people probably shied away. They're like, "How can I grade him?" Which I get. I understand. Like 247, I think it's got him like 1,000 or whatever. There's nobody to grade him, but the accuracy it does not lie. That's a top 100 talent. Now, how you rank him is a different deal. You know, if he played in the Miami Public League, like, there's no hiding. You know, you're going to get the crap beat out of you, and you can see if you can handle it. But I'm telling you, that kid can play.
I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. And hey, if you're itching for football season like I am, guess what? FanDuel has released the odds for Syracuse's first game against Ohio, and the Orange are 15.5-point favorites to get the W. You think the Orange are going to cover? Well, bet it right now on FanDuel. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Fair enough. All right, let's move on to 5-star wide receiver Winston Watkins. He's 5'10", 170 pounds. He's from Venice, Florida. So South Florida, I don't know if that's South Florida, but that is Florida, probably a heavily scouted region. He released his top 16 on July 4th. And the reason why I say that weird is because 16, that's a lot to cut your list down to 16. But Syracuse made the top 16, if for what it's worth. He has unofficially visited campus as well. Obviously, this is someone who has got a lot of SEC buzz with him. How should Syracuse fans feel that we're at least in the conversation for a guy like Winston Watkins?
That's important. I've known Winston since he was in 8th grade. He's a kid that was at IMG for a while, and he's been dominant on the circuit at Under Armour camps. He's been dominant in 7-on-7. He's a tremendous route runner. He is a natural slot. Great hands and all that. And he just transferred to Venice. It's a really good program that it's got one of the best strength and conditioning programs in the country. He'll come in physically ready to play. Different spot than quarterback, I get. But he'll play as a freshman wherever he goes. He'll play in some capacity. Syracuse fans should be happy. This is a guy that Fran knows because he's recruited Florida forever. I've seen Fran on sidelines at high schools before. He knows Watkins. I guarantee you this is the kind of guy they're looking for because – to my knowledge, none of the big three are after him.
None of the big three Florida schools?
Correct.
Why is that the case?
I don't know. But like, let's put this. What do you think in the state of Florida on an average year? How many Power 5 receivers do you think there are come out of Florida?
I would say a lot. I don't have a number, but I would say a whole bunch.
40-ish.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
It just seems weird because it was the same thing with CJ May. It's like, this is a 4-star blue chip prospect. Why are Alabama? It seems like someone who could play for Auburn or Alabama. Why aren't they really after him? Winston Watkins, 5-star wide receiver. Miami, Florida, Florida State. Hello, like, he's in your backyard. One of you three got to get him, right? Okay. I mean,
he's not the biggest guy. That's a lot of people don't think he's a 5-star because of his size.
Okay.
That's the knock. Like, everybody wants frame. The things you can't teach. There's a kid that just recently committed to Florida that's a receiver, not near as polished. He's 6'3", 205. Yeah, they just, we'll teach you. Every coach thinks they're going to teach the guy up. Ask any coach, I can do it. Don't get me started. But that's the tradition with it. Winston could go anywhere, though. He was committed to Colorado at one point. Syracuse could be the destination. It could be, it could be anywhere. But he's a good player. He'll play somewhere. It's just he's a very specific guy. He's a slot receiver.
Okay. So, but you're saying you think his recruitment is pretty much wide open.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right. So maybe we do have more of a chance than I thought.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up at Syracuse. Would not.
Okay. That's music to my ears. Because I know you shoot it straight. You're going to tell me whether or not you think a guy actually has a chance or not here. So that's cool. This is more of a general question for you. Syracuse in 2026 has a trio of stud 4-star recruits. Deontay Sheffy, the running back. They got Isaiah Williams, Demetrius Samuel. We talked about all three here on the podcast before, but they don't have any 4 or 5 stars in its 2025 class. Why do you think that is the case?
That's a bit odd. I'm not sure. Part of it, I know, like I talked to Isaiah recently, I interviewed him, but I think they got on kids early. Fran's really good about getting on guys early, which is key. Some of these kids get overwhelmed on visits, commit, etc. But still, you would think you would get one of them in the current class. Why, I'm not exactly sure, because it's not like the recruiting effort for the current class isn't good. They're doing a nice job.
Yeah, they have now they have 27 commitments. Their long snapper decommitted the other day, so now they have 27 instead of 28. But still, that's second most in the country.
What is it? Rutgers is number 1 or something like that. But
Rutgers is 1.
Yeah, I don't know. I would look at it from the opposite perspective. When was the last time Syracuse had multiple 4-star kids committed early? Ever?
I don't know. 2026. I don't. They don't usually. I think the last recruiting class is like the first one in like 2 decades where they've had like 4 or 5 4-star recruits in it. That was the 2024 class.
Then that's all you really need to know.
Yeah.
Onward and upward, brother. They need to worry about keeping Isaiah because that's going to be really hard.
I hope they can.
Yeah.
It's better to be the incumbent, though, than it is to be the one chasing, in my opinion.
Yeah, like Gators are going to be tough to beat there in the end. I just remember I said that. So
I will remember you said that, and I also don't tell anyone here, but I know this is on the record right now, but I grew up a Florida fan. I don't want him to obviously go to Florida, but if it's between Florida and Syracuse, it's almost like I can't really lose. But for my listeners out there, they wouldn't be too happy. So hopefully we can keep Isaiah Williams. Brian, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think that Syracuse has finally got Northeast football in the right direction. It's like Boston College is not helping y'all out in that area. They're terrible. And it's good to see something up there that's relevant. I'm glad Fran's doing well.
Well, thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for taking the time to hop on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you much.